Hello, and welcome back to the ALC podcast brought to you by Applied Leadership Coaching, Tim Gustafson. And I am Jason Neiman with Good Brand Company. I'll be your lovely co-host today with the beautiful Tim Gustafson. Tim, how are you? How's the
Doing well,
week
Jason.
going? You good?
Going good. Yeah, looking forward
Yeah.
to having a discussion today.
Good. All right. A little sneak peek. We've got we talked a little bit about new design for your website and your logo coming up. We are on the road to that, aren't we? We've got you getting ready to have a new brand, right?
Looking forward to that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah,
So we
it should be good.
good. So we've got a new logo already designed. We're in the middle of working on the website and some other materials and things like that. So we're very excited about that, and I think it's going to be good moving forward. So today, we want to talk about value. We touched a little bit about on applied leadership coaching last time on our podcast, who you are, what you do, what the company does. And today, I think we want to delve a little deeper into a topic, and so value really comes to mind when you and I were talking about, what does this next podcast need to be about? What do we need to talk about with people? And so we've prepared a little bit of content, but it's just going to be a free flow conversation. So today we're going to talk a little bit about value and how that pertains to what you provide to companies, to individuals. We're going to go into a little bit about your team and how much value they provide. I have firsthand experience in that, but we want to obviously get that out to the general public as well. But let's just talk about value in general. As you go around, you meet new people, you talk to different executives that are out there, not as it pertains to value when we talk about money, but when we talk about value as it pertains to what do you provide to a company that ultimately they see as a valuable contribution. What's just a general thought on that? Because I'm curious, people talk about value all the time, but 9 times out of 10, it really is about money.
Yeah, true. Right. Well, from a coaching perspective, our role is to help people be better, help leaders be better, help, CEOs and managers of companies be better leaders and help them to sort of see things they haven't seen. But, this value thing is such an individualized thing when it comes to coaching. Now, certainly team coaching, individual coaching at the CIO, CEO, COO level, that obviously affects the entire company. But the general atmosphere, the attitudes of the company and so forth, the employees, it really starts with the leaders. So, these leaders, when we affect change in them or they affect change in themselves, that value just goes all throughout, ripples throughout the company. So, value, I think, is gauged by the individual. So each time we go in to talk and work with companies, it's an individual thing.
Right.
And so they sort of define what that value is that they need as we start connecting with them. Now, some of them, they're highly control oriented. And so value to them might be that they have to be able to let go of things. And they need to be able to delegate and allow others to do it. Just a quick little example. So, another value that someone might be needing is I need to provide more vision and purpose for my team.
Right.
And so we help them to understand and see these things that they may not be necessarily seeing because they're so involved or they just don't have that perspective that they, that they're searching for yet.
Right. That's a great point, and I think even with us working with you as a company, providing that value to us, there's no dollar amount that can be put on it.
Yeah.
Because it is individual to each person, or it's individual to a group of people, and so that's great. That's a great way of putting it. When you talk about the individual coaching that you're doing as it pertains to that value, how do you approach getting to the question with these people of, you know, at the end of the day, once we're finished here, and as we continue on with our coaching and leadership training and all those things you do you kind of set up the question, you know, what would be a success if you got to it? Do you have that question with people? And is that usually a hard question, easy to answer, difficult to answer?
You know, that's I appreciate you asking that. That's really can be really, really difficult to answer at the beginning because they don't necessarily know where they need to go. And so success might look, they may have an idea in mind what success is, but as we start diving into it, they find out that maybe that's not what they're looking for, you know, their early on indication or their thought process. Sometimes, you know, people are very focused and they know they have to be better at doing X, whatever that happens to be. Maybe I need to be less critical. And so they know that going in. And so, you know, that is our focus. And success really gets defined by, you know, seeing it change. And they see the change. Hopefully others see the change. And that might be success unto itself. I've found many of my clients I've had for years. And so this part of the success is just growing and learning and developing. And as you know, that's a never-ending process, right?
Yeah,
and we don't just learn
right.
2 or 3 things and we're done. And so, you know, hence I stick around and I continue to coach these folks on different things. You know, some I've been coaching for more than 3 years. Typically, we start out with maybe a 6-month engagement or 1-year engagement, and you know, it sort of fits the budget. They move on, they've learned and grown, and you know, and they move to another role or whatever, or that's
Right.
the end of the contract, or whatever. So, so you know, from a value perspective, this idea of success is really something that I think is sort of an idea that isn't necessarily defined up front. We do define it as we go along, though. We usually focus on, say, one big thing that we want to work on. And we work all sorts of angles in order to get to that place where they do feel the change. And that one piece is, you know, quote unquote, complete.
Right.
The other part of this process, though, which I've found just to be super fascinating, is the idea of, and I'm going to call it the Venturi effect. And it might be a little bit too involved to go through here, but the idea of a Venturi effect. So in mechanical engineering, there's a process about water flow through a pipe, and you know, so water flows through a pipe. If you put a jet inside that pipe, a jet of water, and you pump it in at super fast rates, that water flow inside the pipe around where the jet is flowing, the other water tends to move faster.
Okay.
So applying it to coaching, we work on one big thing and somebody zooms ahead in this. Well, as they do that, other areas that they're working on, they tend to move along with it.
Got it.
So it's not just that we're working on one thing, but the effect of mastering something or becoming better at something helps these other skills and competencies to be improved as well.
And so what you're saying then from that perspective is honing in on one particular improvement. From a value perspective, it actually improves more than just that one thing. So you're getting more value out of that one thing you may be working on because it's, you know, it's ancillary pieces that are all around it. Just by osmosis or whatever you want to call it, they end up having a better reaction to it as well. Correct?
Yes, correct. Because all these competencies are so intertwined,
Yeah.
right? It's I don't just become, you know, work on integrity. Integrity is also tied to being authentic or being
Right.
Courageous or having a vision or being caring for people. You know, all these things are involved. So you focus on one and the other pieces and parts also touch it.
Right.
So they get affected as well.
You know, your organization as a whole, the people you've partnered with, the and the value that you bring as it pertains to that. I love the expertise that you and all of your the people on your team have. And so can you talk a little bit about that value when you bring this group of people together? what it does as opposed to you just being a guy that's a coach out there. You know, can you talk about how you approach when it's time to bring someone else in, and then how that experience is value driven as opposed to, you know, you being a one-man show? How does that work?
Oh, good question. So, you know, I'll bring up a recent example of something that we had just a little while ago. So 3 of us worked together on a project, and it was a large customer. We had about 35 clients that we coached at one time.
Wow.
Now, for one individual to do that, that's a little bit much. And so we divided it up, and we were able to each have, 10 coaches or so, or 10 clients or so, 10 or 12. And, so that provided a couple of things. One, that we can be expansive. You know, if we had to, we could coach, with the 6 of us, we could coach whatever, 100 people if we had a project that size. So it provides us the capacity to handle very large clients and situations. Right. So that's available to us, which is great. But the other thing is, you know, as we take on these larger projects, it's not always just about individual coaching. It might be team coaching. It might be that we're doing larger groups or segmented groups, sort of like cohorts within that, which we did on this project. And so it allows us as a team to work together and to provide our expertise in the different areas that we might be focusing on. Right. So we had a monthly theme for this project, and we, included things such as trust, change management, resilience. We worked different topics each month, and those topics, each of us had a different perspective on what should be included or involved in that. And so as a result, we came up with a much better product than it would have been had just one of us been working on it.
Right. And do you also feel like there are times when maybe one person may not connect as deeply with a person who needs a coach, and you might shuffle that client, to another coach that might connect more intensely with that person to get the most out of the relationship?
Yes, absolutely. The part of the coaching process, it's a partnership between the client and the coach. Sure. Yeah. And so there has to be some kind of dynamic, some kind of electricity, if you will, between the coaches and the clients. And if that isn't there, then the progress isn't going to be made that's going to be necessary or desired. So, so we provide options. And in fact, I just proposed to a group last week, and I said, I was just going in by myself. I, always have the coaches there, the other coaches with me, and, it sort of as a marketing piece. And I said, hey, if you're not comfortable with me, there's 5 other coaches here. Here's their resumes. Here's the information for them. If you feel more comfortable with what you see there, we can do an interview, and you could connect with them and use them. So it's not all about Tim and the way Tim coaches. It's about getting the right setup. And I think that's such a tremendous value to have this diverse group of people that's on our team, so that they can bring these other perspectives and diversity and experiences that I don't necessarily have.
Yeah, that's great. I think that, again, we keep talking about value, but I think what that does is it allows a comfort level from a client standpoint too, because if I'm just more comfortable with another person's personality, or if I connect more with that individual, I may be more willing to open up. I may be more willing to move to that next level. Now, knowing you as long as I have, and working with you incredibly closely, I can't imagine there's a lot of people that don't connect with you. But in that rare occasion, it's always good to know that there might be a person, on the, in another area of your company that can cycle in, and you don't have to start over from scratch or something like that.
Right. Right.
So let's talk about some of those other people. We won't go into too much detail, but talk about your connection to Georgetown, to some of the other things that you've all done, and how you work as a team. I'd love to learn more about that.
Okay, sounds good. So these folks are the thing that we have in common is Georgetown University. We all either have attended the Georgetown University Executive Leadership Coaching Program, or we have taught there. And I'm not a teacher. I was an attendee. I was a student there. And but a couple of folks on my team are teachers and leaders there. One right now, Randy is a co-program leader. And but they regularly attend. They work on the cohorts and teaching and coaching and so forth. So really, really sharp people. They have backgrounds. Some of them have coached all over the world. We've been in, I can't tell you how many different industries, at least 10 or 15, banking, chemical, industrial, construction, the government, academia. The list goes on and on and on. I don't know that there are many industries that we haven't been part of, actually. So technology, IT, it's a whole nother one, high tech kind of stuff. So, these experiences in the different companies bring this diversity of thought process that we can bounce things off of one another. The way our team is, we are just wide open with one another. If there is something that somebody needs, and they're working on something, we just connect with each other and say, "Oh yeah, I've got that. Let me just send it to you."
Right.
And so this idea of intellectual property and within our team, it doesn't exist. We're just open to help each other, and with our ideas, our thought process, materials that we've used in the past that we've developed. It is really it's a sweet experience to be around these folks. They're humble. They've got such great demeanors, but yet they're hardworking. They're intense people, tremendous coaches. They have a fantastic ability to focus on the present and being right here, open with the client, to be able to just feel and see and hear what's going on so that they can ask the questions and they can provide the input that's valuable for them at that moment. So, going back to, I think, something we talked about last time, it's really about that light bulb going off for the client.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Right. And so these guys, all of them, the two gals and the three other guys, are all experts at it. So
that's great.
Yeah. So we just have a really good relationship with all of them. In fact, one of them, Jennifer, is my coach. She coaches me. She coaches me once a month. Something we've been doing for, I don't know, a couple years now. And so some good things going on within the team. And we're just looking for opportunities to continue to be together because we enjoy being around each other.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so part of what you do, some people may be wondering, as I am sometimes, you get into these relationships with people and you're like, oh, you're a life coach, you're a business coach, you're a executive coach, you're a leadership coach, and there's all these different monikers that get put on people. What is it that your company does in general? So when we talk about specific, I know you do leadership training and skills development. So Can you kind of rattle off and go through some of those things that you do, those bullet points, just so that people can understand, the types of services that you have and what you do, and then maybe touch on a couple of things that maybe you don't do, things that you're sort of like you're expected to do every once in a while, and you go, that's beyond what we do, and it's not really in our wheelhouse.
Good. Okay. So we are, I think we are focused on executive leadership coaching. That is our specific wheelhouse. And so I think that's a love that we all share. But around that, there are all sorts of services that we provide, right? Because it's not always just about coaching one individual. We may have to then do team coaching for that CEO and his group of people, or the president and their group of people that are surround them. So it could be team coaching for that president in their meetings. So individual coaching for the group, and then team coaching around that. Well, not everybody's made alike. So some of us have really good skill sets in certain areas and not in others. So then we also provide training. So specific leadership training, and some of those things might include some of the things we've already talked about, right? So maybe we focus on integrity, or focus on trust, or we focus on delegation, or maybe some of the management skills that tie to leadership.
Right.
So how do we let go of things? How do we be less critical? So there might be some discussion points and some training around, let's say, listening. Mm-hmm. Listening is such a key component, right? And so, I've got a little activity and some training on listening. So, but I mean, this is expansive. I mean, there's probably 20 different topics that we cover, depending upon the need that the group has and the individuals have. So we'll spend time in those areas if that's a desired thing. So leadership training, the skills development piece. Also, as part of that, there might be some meeting facilitation. So all of us have done meeting facilitation where we go in, not being the leader of the meeting, but facilitating a training or facilitating the meeting in behalf of the leader, always keeping them out in front as the leader. That's such an important piece. When we do team coaching, I don't sit at the table because I'm not part of the team. I'm on the side and I'm just observing and coaching from the side. And I'll jump in and have something to say, but it's their team, it's the leader's team, and I don't want to break that confidence or that feel of that team by being at the table. Right. It's a slight nuance, but those kinds of things are really pretty important. Let's see, we also do workshops, we do change management. There's some consulting that we do. Obviously, there's business and leadership consulting that we do. Organization.
Can you delve a little bit into change management? Because there's a lot of discussion around that these days and what that means. Can you be a little bit more specific on what you do and how you facilitate that?
Absolutely. So, growing up in the project management world and the construction world, there's a concept of change control, which is about managing and controlling the changes on a project specifically. Change management is really around the people component. And that's really, right, it's really focused on what are we doing from a leadership perspective to help people move through change? Right. Change is it's such a big thing. And there can be negative changes and positive changes, both of which you have to be prepared for. Just because it's a positive change doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. Right. We're getting out of our routines. We're doing something different. We're moving from A to B. How do we do that? What are all the steps involved? Am I trained to go from A to B? Do I have the competence and the skill to go from A to B? Right. What are the new processes I'm going to have to deal with? What's the timing on communications? So much of change is about communication and how we lay that out. So all those pieces and parts, and there's several more I haven't spent any time on here, but those are kinds of things that we as a team have a great expertise in. All of us, in fact, do. We've dealt with it throughout the years.
That's great. And you also do mentor coaching too.
Mentor coaching, yes. So, in fact, Jennifer is a mentor coach. So she coaches people to advance in their certification levels.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so she's really good. And then, I think the mentor coach, where you're coaching the coach, that's something that I think we sort of incorporate into most of our larger projects, in that we're working with managers and they need to know how to coach their team. So we help them and provide them tools to be able to coach their group. It's not that they have to be a professional coach sure. like our team is, but yeah, they can use the tools. They can use. I mean, these tools are available to everybody, and why not have people be better? I mean, that's the whole purpose here, is for people to be better at what they're doing.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely. And so, I know you love to throw it back on somebody because that's sort of your thing. You don't want to give the answer. You want them to come to the answer on their own. And that's something I've learned about you, which I love. But let me ask you a deep question as it pertains to that. You can do the mentor coaching. You can work on leadership training on some of these people. When do you think the light bulb goes off from a value perspective on their end? And I know it's different for every individual, but I'm sure there's some commonalities with these individuals that you work with where you sort of go, they finally have crossed the river to understand what we provide and why it's beneficial. I mean, I know there's no easy answer for that, but can you try to just talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's really fascinating.
Sure. Yeah. And it's why I coach, to see
Right.
those light bulbs go off. It's so cool to watch it. So, I would define it, or at least explain it as, we have blind spots, and these are areas that are dark to us. We don't see the answer. We don't see ourselves acting in this way. And so the light bulb goes off, and boom, I didn't realize that's
Right.
what it's all about.
Right.
And it moves people to tears at times, because
Yeah.
they find out, oh my gosh, I have been doing this to this person for that long, and I never even realized. I had no idea.
Right.
Or just this intense feeling rushes forward, and it's a very emotional thing when you have this realization about an area that's been clouded for you.
Yeah.
And so, and it is, like you say, it's different for everybody. Sometimes it's something that a way in which we've been acting with someone, or a way that we've learned as a child growing up. And so it's something we've just embodied. Sometimes we have such amazing brilliance and genius in an area that we go on to autopilot. We just charge forward. We don't even think about what we're doing because we're so good at it. And we don't realize the impact that we're having on people because we're in this autopilot mode.
Right.
And
it's not just the people, it's also the company. You may you may affect the processes, you may affect the way that other companies perceive you as a leader. So it may not just be the people that work with you, and it's something I've learned in working with you and our group. It's sort of like if you can make the realization that you do have a genius and you do have the ability to really step out in front and be something special, but if that comes at a cost, you have to at least be aware of what that cost is. The cost
Yes.
may be okay.
Yes.
But at least be aware of it so that you can make a good professional executive judgment on whether or not that cost is worth the value that your genius brings.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
I mean, that's
exactly.
an epiphany that I sort of had in working with you and your team. It's sort of like, we went through the leadership circle profile, and we learned a lot about ourselves and who we are. And, you're always excited to see the things that you're really great at. But the things you really focus on, if you're a true leader, the things you really focus on, at least I think, are some of those places that are weaknesses, but not just the weaknesses, because everybody has weaknesses, but the weaknesses that either affect other people or affect the growth of my company or affect the way in which our company or myself are perceived in the
Yes.
ultimate end. And I
Right.
think that realization for me, there's no amount of value, to go back to this, there's no amount of value that I can put on that, because it even goes further than just on me or my company. It also, I think about it in my personal life. I think about it
Yeah.
in, my relationship with my wife or my children or my friends or people that I just interact with at the grocery store as a cashier. All of the ways that your personality is perceived and the way that it comes across is really it's really important, and I think it's one of the things that we have all sort of lost in our ability to just, we got to get that done, or we've got to
Yes.
we've got to get that next dollar or that next check in to make payroll. You sometimes forget that we're people,
Yeah.
and people have feelings, and there are nuances to everybody's personality, and what you could say to one person may be different than what you could say to another person. And so, being careful and being mindful of that and being fair and honest and doing the things that, you if you look in the mirror, you go, okay, I handled that correctly.
Right. Right.
Those are some of the realizations. And so for me, being a client of yours, the value of making that realization has been incredible for us. Everybody on my
That's
team,
great.
for that matter. And I think you can talk about it, but the experience that I went through with you, and with our team, and not only seeing it in myself, but seeing it in other people on my team, where they're now really conscious of how they approach something, or they're more conscious of a weakness that they might have that they're trying to improve. And so those things are so valuable, and they end up making everybody around them, including them, better. So let me
jump in
that a little bit.
Yeah, let me jump in. I got a comment on that. So you mentioned a couple things. One about the 360s, right? You're getting feedback from other people. What a gift that is, because we don't normally get that. And we don't always perceive or understand how people perceive us.
Right.
And so when you get that kind of information, it's fantastic. And, there's been a buzzword around for years about intentionality. Oh, we need to lead an intentional life and so forth, which is fantastic, right? But if we don't know this information, we're not self-aware, we can't necessarily be intentional in the way we need to be.
Right.
We might be intentional, but we're still using our genius and we're blowing by people or creating this wake.
Yeah.
So being self-aware and then being intentional is so critical, because you have now this information and you know the consequences of being intentional.
Right.
And you may still make the same decision, but you know now the impact of it and the
and
consequences.
The repercussions. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So that self-awareness before intentionality is really an important piece of the coaching that we bring. I mean, that's part of the whole process, right?
Right. And I think we should coin our own term here, but that value is invaluable. Right? It's invaluable to the people as individuals. It's invaluable to the company that they work for. It's invaluable to the people that they do work for. If you're in the service industry, and let's just say that, half of your time is spent talking to clients, being able to interact with those clients on a more respectful or a more engaging level, where they're going to feel as important as they need to feel, that value makes your stock rise. Not individually even, but your company stock rise. And as executives, as leaders that we are, you always say we have to lead by example. We have to show our team that we're being respectful to them and listening to what they're saying in order to provide the best results we can for them. So I think those things that provide that level of quality value, again, I'm going to go back to the term, is invaluable to us, because you can't measure that. There's no way to measure it. The only way you measure it is to see if the morale of the team is better, and your relationships with people, the ultimate, hopefully revenue is increased because you've done better, things like that. Hopefully, the perception in the marketplace of who you are and what your company provides is better. But getting in this day and age of statistics and being able to measure everything to the nth degree, I don't think those things you can really measure other than your perception of the measurement. And so, so I think your inward look that you really suggest to us as clients of yours, that inward look is incredibly important. And as a client, like I said, it doesn't just affect the work relationship; it affects everything. Even our relationship, as we do a video. How do you listen or act with a person to get the most out of that person, one way or the other? So I think it's really important, and I think it's also something that your team does a great job with. So I guess that's the end of that sort of thought in my brain. Sorry, I sort of took over from you. I didn't mean to, but it was sort of like I wanted to show how much value you actually provide to people and to companies.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. That's great to hear, that it has that kind of an impact. And and I think we see it and feel it many times. But sometimes we come in and we're there for 6 months or a year, and we move out, and we don't know the longer term effects that it has. But you mentioned something about how it's not just about you and your team, but it's also your family and friends and so forth. And our belief is that it is not just about one thing. I mean, this is creating a whole person, because we want to be the same here, there, and everywhere. Because
Right.
when we do that, we're not hiding anything. We don't burn up energy because we have to be one way in place A and a different way in place B. We are who we are.
Right.
We just go about our lifestyle and our business to the best ability that we can, reaching our potential in all areas. And that's a lot. But when you can get focused like that, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So,
So those are the things you do. Are there any anecdotal thoughts of situations where, an executive expects you to do something that you don't do? You're not a psychiatrist, I know. So, although some people may want you to be at times, I'm sure. But what are those things where you go, hey, I have to draw the line here because this isn't my area of expertise, nor is it something that we really focus on as executive coaches. What are some of those things that pop up?
so that's great. So there's a definitive line between coaching and consulting, for instance. And we do, because we have business experience. I've got 30 years in the industry, and people on the team have 10, 12, 20 years of industry experience as well. So there are times when it is appropriate to consult as opposed to coach. So
Right.
consulting is telling people what to do, where coaching is asking questions, helping them figure it out. And so when those times come about, we tend to clearly call it out and say, hey, is it all right if I provide a little bit of consulting here?
Mm,
I've got a few thoughts I'd like to just lay out on the table.
right. Yeah. Good point.
Just to make it clear that, it's sort of like putting one hat on and taking one off, putting the other one on kind of thing. So we call that out. So that probably happens more often than the next example of counseling. This idea of doing, mental health counseling. Coaching is for the mentally healthy. Those that have things going on and that they've got it together. Now, I had never experienced a situation where I was on that line, but this last summer I was coaching a fella, and he was having some significant challenges in his life. And so I agreed to spend time with him. Probably spent, I don't know, 6 hours or so on and off with him. And at some point during that, last couple of times, I sensed that this is a situation that he's not mentally healthy.
Right.
And this is outside of my bounds of coaching. It's outside of my expertise. Now, sure, could I provide him some advice? Yeah, but this is something different. And so he could not make decisions on his own. He was so mixed up and had so many challenges. He was so overwhelmed that he could not decide. He needed me to decide these things for him. That's not my role.
Right.
He needs to be able to do that for himself, and he just could not do it. Emotionally, he could not do it.
Wow. Okay.
And so I talked with him. I said, hey, you need to get to a specialist, and you need to spend some time working through this and figuring this out, which he did. And fortunately, he's back on track. I haven't picked up coaching back up with him at this point, but maybe we will. We're still good friends. I saw him the other day, gave him a big hug, and just have a great bond with him. But he's doing so much better. But there was a line, and I felt it. I knew that was a place we don't go to, and
Right.
he needs some different expertise. So,
And that probably doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's good that you're aware of it and you're able to at least maybe step in and make a suggestion. How great is that these people have other people that are looking at them deeper than whatever the surface level might be, and have some expertise and understanding that, hey, that's not just you need some self-improvement on a strategic level. There's something else going on that's a deeper seated issue,
Yes.
So in some sense of a matter, in this particular case, you may have helped him, you know, come back or get healthy from a situation just by being honest. You know,
Oh,
and saying, "Hey,
absolutely.
look, you know,
Absolutely.
this is
Yeah.
more in depth." And what a shot, sort of like, you know, we're all put on this earth, and we all think we can fix everybody. That's who we are, right?
Yeah.
And
And
so
we
a
want
lot
to
of
be helpful, you know, we want to
right,
help people. So,
yeah, you don't want to see people hurting or upset or not being able to do something from a healthy standpoint. So, but what a great testament it is to say, hey, you know, I'm going to put my ego and my checkbook aside. I could keep taking this person's money, and I could still act like I know what's going on, but really this person needs help, and that's more important than any of these other things going on at this point. So
absolutely.
so
Yeah, and
again,
I think that's the way it is all the time, right? It is always about the client and what's in their best interest. It's not about my best interest or my ego. And you know, that's the biggest challenge as a coach, is to keep my ego, my thoughts out of this. It's not about me, and it's not about how I play in this game. It's about them and how they play, and me
right.
helping them to continue to play.
And how valuable, because that means that it's helping that person grow and learn. It's that old adage of teaching somebody to fish instead of feeding them,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep. Right on. Yep. Exactly.
So that's great. Um, let's get to a point. Let's maybe wrap this idea up a little bit, because I think this has been a fantastic discussion. Some great insights on who you are and what your team does. Any other thoughts on, as you're out there and, you know, you may be considering hiring a coach? You know, we touched on this a little bit in the last podcast, but as you're considering hiring a coach, you know, we talked about trust. Now we're
Yeah.
talking about value. What are some of the other things that people should be looking for, and maybe that we'll be discussing in future podcasts, but what are some of the things that you need to look for when you're really interviewing a coach, saying this person needs to come in and give us a shot, other than, you know, a recommendation from, you know, a colleague or a peer that says, hey, these people are really good.
Right. Right.
But what should people be looking for?
You know, and this is probably biased because I'm a little bit older, but I think folks,
Older by what standard, Tim, is the question.
well, you know, how about more mature? How's that?
There you go.
Than I used to be.
More wisdom.
More wisdom. You know, I mean, but that's an important point, right? So if you're getting somebody that's fresh out of school, they just don't have the worldly experiences. They may have the mechanics down, but so much of this coaching is about maturity.
Right.
And I can't imagine myself coaching at 25 and bringing the value that was really necessary to be in a place where I can really be helpful for people.
Sure.
Now, maybe I could have coached at a younger level, people that are younger and so forth, but certainly I couldn't see myself coaching at a C-suite level, you know. So I think that's part of it. Is experience and maturity is an important piece to this.
Right.
I think also having diversity of thought, right? Because my way is not always the right way.
Right.
And so there's this humility that has to come. And, you know, it is that humility about it not being about me. That is such an important piece. And I think that sort of lends itself to trust. It lends itself to the idea of value, that, you know, to be able to place yourself out there and be wide open and transparent. I'm vulnerable as a coach. And, you know, that in a way sort of sets an example. And if you get that sense from the coach that you're interviewing or you're looking for, you know, you're on the right track, is my thought. So I think folks that you probably need to stay away from are those that are telling you what to do, because that's not really coaching. It's another consultant coming in telling you, you know, their perspective on things. And, you know, we look at what coaching is, and it's a long-term gig. It's not coming in and dumping information and saying this is the way to do it and then exiting. It's a process. It takes time for us to change. And we have to go through these things. And You know, you can go to a class, and we think we talked about this last time. You go to a class and learn all this stuff, and then 2 weeks later you've forgotten it.
Right.
Well, that's not what coaching is. Coaching is we stick with it, we stay with it until we figure it out, and we continue to try different things. And once the light bulb goes off and the lens or the vision, looking through a different lens is now there, well, then you've arrived, right? You've now
Right.
you see the new vision and understand it. And so, yeah, a little bit off topic with that, but I think, you know, those are the kinds of things, someone that has that kind of maturity and has been through these kind of awareness situations, these light bulb moments, that's really an important piece in my mind.
Right. Okay, one last question for you. I'm curious, you know, you've been doing this on your own, obviously, for a while now. What's the value that you get out of doing what you do? You know, when you boil it down and you go to sleep at night and you go, wow, you know, that was a great day and here's the reason why. What do you get from it?
You know, just inbred in me are a couple of things. Service is something that I grew up with. My mom, and my dad, they were just people of service, and they just helped people out. And that was, I have these memories of my mom often taking a blueberry pie to somebody, taking dinner to somebody, serving on this board or that, or going and helping somebody that's sick, it's just, you know, endless amount of memories associated with that. My dad, the same way. And so that's something that's part of me. And so when I'm in the service of others, helping them to be better, well, that's what it's all about for me. That's something that is just part of my life. And without that, I don't know where I'd be. And so that to me is the value that I get out of this, is that I can go to bed at night and just sleep well, knowing that I've done the best I can to help other people be better.
Wow.
And the other piece of it is really around integrity. So doing the things that I say I'm going to do. And, you know, so I have this drive, if you will, this commitment to people that I connect with, that we're going to see this thing through to make sure that you're on the track, on the path, in the place where you need to be.
Right.
And so I spend a lot of time thinking offline about my clients and what they're going through, where they're at, what are some different approaches that I can take. I might even talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm sort of stuck here. Can you help me out? To get other ideas from my coaching team.
Right.
Because it's really important for me to be able to help other people to be better. And that's go to great lengths along those lines.
Do you ever team up people that you've coached that have come a long way and say, hey, you know, this guy, very similar to you, very close personality, you know, that person could bring something to you as well, and you might want to just go have coffee with that person or just have, you know, a conversation. Do you ever do that?
Like with another coach kind of thing?
No, actually with another, like an executive that you're working with, introducing them to another executive that maybe you've worked with in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
To connect people so that they can learn and say, wow, you've really, you know, you've implemented with what you've learned from Tim and working with Tim, you've really implemented this and it's really done wonders for your company.
Yes. In fact, I did that yesterday.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Great. Because I am pretty well networked in the Charlotte area. And so, you know, yeah, all the people that I know, and yeah, there's great value in that. And a lot of times, you know, there's no value that I get out of that, except I've just connected some people and they may have something that happens for them. And that's great.
Well, so, I think there is a huge value to it. It's word of mouth. It's, you know, reinforcement of who you are and what you do and the benefits of that. I mean, so I think it's there. I just think you're a modest guy and it's hard to accept that's what it is. So, all right. Well, I'd love to, any last thoughts or should we move on?
No, I think this is great. Yeah. Okay. I've appreciated the questioning here. It's been good. Good interactions.
The interrogation, the lighthearted interrogation.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for the time. We'll be posting this on our YouTube channel and Vimeo and on the website as it gets revamped here in the next month. But as always, much respect to you and everything you do for companies and for people and executives in general. And I look forward to our next episode. That'll be probably about 3 to 4 weeks from now, because now we're on a good path. And so I'd just like to thank you for your time and look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Jason. This has been great. I appreciate your time and your thoughts.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.